nachos, amigos, and welcome to Record Breakers, a podcast about music where a group of friends gather together to share music with each other, an album at a time. It's like a little book club for music. I'm Petey Rave, and I like to be swaddled rather than full cocoon, but just kind of like just swaddle myself. Here with me is my team, my squad, my crew. We've got David.
I'm here on behalf of the Cockroach King from 1985.
Mm-hmm. We've got Drew.
I was going to make a comment about my upper lip being cold, but now I feel like I have to welcome Orange Cassidy to the podcast. But.
Yes. And of course, we've got Brett.
You'll never get sick, never grow old, you'll never die.
Exactly.
I wonder if Brett can do a kip up with his hands in his pockets.
Speaking of mustaches, Wilford Brimley, sorry, Cocoon. It's a fantastic
I could go for some oatmeal.
Yeah. I in Outer Worlds, I play a lady with a beard. And with a curly mustache.
I thought we were gonna talk about maybe
Wilford Brimley
shaving his beard and going with the mustache.
I mean, I thought about shaving the other day too, but it's unseasonable for that.
We do November beard at work, so.
I'm getting this curl. Look at that. Get the curl up.
Yeah, get some wax. I will order you wax. I swear to God.
This is me at my grisliest, everybody.
Yes. All right.
You tell me you will do Thanksgiving at Best Buy with a handlebar mustache. I swear to God, I will order you wax to your house right now.
Facial hair breakers is in effect.
Yes. That aside, facial hair discussions aside, we're here to talk about music, talk about an album. The provider of the album this week, David, what have you brought for us this week?
Shout out to Dollar Shave Club. The album I have brought this week is courtesy of English guitarist and composer Richard Henshall, best known in his work in the band Haken, as well as the band Tomera. This is his solo album released in 2019 entitled The Cocoon.
Van Haken? I like them. They do jump splits.
Yeah, they are pretty good. Like I said at the beginning of the show, my favorite song, maybe of the last decade, is composed by this gentleman in the band Haken called 1985.
Mm-hmm. Drew.
Common misconception, it's 85, not 84.
Mm-hmm. Drew, what were your expectations coming into this album?
Well, I never heard of this dude nor Haken, so I was super pumped to hear this because all I knew that usually when David brings in something I do not know literally at all, it's going to be some cool prog metal shit. So I was super down.
Yes.
Prog metal shit.
Yes. Brett, what were your expectations coming into this album?
I believe that I was asked to pick between two things, and I picked purple. And I don't know what purple meant for this, so I was coming in thinking I'm gonna hear it's gonna be like Prince or like something like.
Come on!
No, I was hoping it would be something
so obvious.
I don't know, what else is I don't know what's purple about this, but I came into this wondering because I had no clue who the hell this guy was. This guy was born in 1989. I'm old. I'm old. So anything that has been made by someone who is younger than me, I've probably not known.
You missed my vaporwave phase then. Oh man.
Yeah.
I mean,
bring some of that back. Let's listen to some Blank Banshee.
Let's have a bunch of instrumental stuff that we can talk to each other about, but it's electronic. So we're describing a noise that doesn't have an actual instrument. That's my favorite.
Yes. Oh my God, some beautiful stuff here. I had no idea what to expect here, but I was looking forward to it. It's always interesting when you get an album by a young artist, relatively speaking, in this genre, and it's his album, it's their album.
It is his album. And credit to him, it doesn't sound completely exactly like Haken, of which he's the primary guitarist and songwriter, aside from one track having a cameo appearance from the vocalist in Haken. This actual album does not completely sound like Haken. It does have a little bit of that DNA, a little bit of the Dream Theater-y and jazz fusion-y stuff, but it's different enough. And I'm here for it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, how else would you describe this album, David? Let's go into it.
I would say this gives Richard Henshall a chance to stretch his musical identity beyond the bands that he's in. Because when you play prog, you have to be in multiple projects to make money, because there's not a lot of money in prog. But to Richard Henshall's credit, this doesn't sound much like Haken, nor does it sound like the heavier side of things with Tomera. It sounds maybe like one of Haken's earlier albums with more of a heavier tinge. There is that obvious Dream Theater influence because the touring members of Haken played with Mike Portnoy, the former drummer of Dream Theater, for a while he was doing a solo thing for a little bit. So you hear all of those influences. You hear the jazz fusion, you hear the progressive rock, you hear the heavy metal all over this, and you hear splashes of electronica, a little, what's the word I'm looking for, sort of a jazzy art rock kind of thing, and there's even something that will really catch you off guard. And no, I'm not talking about the obligatory heavy metal saxophone. And yes, you damn right I'm bringing back some saxophone. Damn right I am.
It's a heavy metal saxophone.
Yeah.
Like,
Damn right.
That's yes.
Let's get saxy. Drew, how would you describe this album musically?
Well, I was expecting like the proggy weirdness, and I was super here for it. Like the super well thought out, super well composed stuff. Also, the actual mixing on this album was super well done. It had that thing to me where each song was able to highlight certain things within the mix, and I think that's really cool when somebody can do that. I saw it was a solo artist, and usually solo artists for prog metal being, hey, a dude's gonna bring some of his friends and like he's going to make all of their parts, sort of thing. So like I was like, okay, there's going to be some heavy use of guitar, because that's usually what I expect when I see solo guy making metal album. But what struck me and surprised me a lot was the bass in this record. I think a lot of the time it stole the show from me. I even tried to Google at one point the gear that they were using on this album, which isn't super easy to find. I wasn't able to find it, so if somebody can, that'd be dope. It does dive into overall that like jazz territory at times, but it never leaves, like, especially the bass never leaves too far behind of that like sort of thumpy full metal bass. Like this is the tonality I want all my metal bass players to have from here on out. Also, what struck me was how seamlessly everything fit together. At certain points, I think I was like halfway through, because I knew going in, I was like, okay, some of these songs are going to be long, just looking at the 7-song track list. But I got like halfway through track 4 before I was like, wait a second, hold on. I don't know where one song ended and one song began, which I think is really cool. When an artist can seamlessly mix everything together. Also, there's a goddamn sax, and I'm here for it.
Yes. Always good to have sax.
I will never miss a chance to give you guys some good hard heavy metal sax, because you know you like it. You know you like it.
Well, I mean, Can I talk now, Petey?
Yes.
Because
I will say one thing. I found an interview on Proglodytes where they interviewed Richard Henshall and they asked him what gear he used on the record. He says he used his trusty Strandberg guitar for pretty much all the guitar parts. The Ender neck profile for rising more. He also used an Epiphone hollow body jazz guitar for the bebop section in one of the songs, and a Fender Telecaster. He used contact. Yeah, it goes into more details, which is really cool, interesting.
We'll
yeah,
put
Brett.
that in the show notes for the gearheads.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, Brett, how would you describe this album musically?
Well, yes, it is. Google. There's this man named Alan Holdsworth, and he had an album called Metal Fatigue in the late '70s. And he did like math on a guitar, and it was not the easiest thing to listen to. It wasn't really great, but it was really well done. This is kind of like that, but easier to listen to. This is like, obviously you listen to it and there's like advanced stuff going on, and it's like stuff that's normally reserved for the genre of music made for musicians. But this is like not necessarily that sour of a sound. There's melody going on. There are a lot of really, really long boodle deedle doo solos that probably go on a little bit longer, because I was describing this to my friend earlier, as I gave an example of a big long stretch of boodle deedle doos. If you not unlike talking, if you ramble on for too long on a sentence, sometimes people won't know what you were talking about when you started, and it'll start losing people as it goes. But when you're making music like this, you are doing a thing for a purpose and not necessarily trying to get mom to clap along to the beat, which, by the way, there are a lot of really odd time signatures on this album, and a lot of weird solos that, like, some of them are super long, some of them are just little flourishes that last a second just to fill that little, like, guitar fills. That was a thing in this album. There's obviously a ton of things going on here. Also, there's some saxophone. That guy studied, got his master's at IU, and he was running there. That guy I looked up, his name's Adam. I'm guessing by the way that he looks, we're going to call him Carrillo. Like he plays in worship bands and is from Texas, but he totally studied at IU. Did not look like the guy who you would think would be playing reverbed out saxophone on a metal song. But yes. Yeah. You can get lessons from him if you're in the San Antonio area.
All about,
like, let me give, like, I'll sell him for free instead of Dollar Shave Club.
Yeah.
Brett, I want you to know I hung on your every word, and you had my undivided attention. You did not lose me for a second.
Well, you have to take breaths. That's the other thing. Like, when you're playing, like, you got to take breaths when you're playing your blues licks. Yeah. But when you're playing jazz, you can just, like, let it all out.
That recursive breathing exercise that. Yeah, I don't know how to do that.
So like, circular breathing. Yeah. Kenny. Yep. You know who to go to if you want to circular breathe.
Yeah. Let's talk about some of the key tracks, because we can talk about the music at the whole, but we have to zero in on some of these tracks. There's not a lot of individual tracks, but there's a lot of moments.
Every track is an individual.
Yes. There's a lot of cool moments, and there's a lot to unpack. But yeah, David, what would be some of the key tracks or moments for you?
For moments, I will definitely say the title track had the reverberated vocal melody that your Dream Theater fan will absolutely love, because it will remind them of the likes of OSI and Chroma Key and Porcupine Tree, really checking all of the prog boxes with that one. Twisted Shadows, a great keyboard solo from the god Jordan Rudess, and Limbo. I would say Limbo is probably the song that I would pick as the song to ease someone in gently before the rest of the album leaves their head spinning. But the chorus on Limbo is really intense and really, really heartfelt and enjoyable.
Mm-hmm. Drew, what would be some of the key tracks for you?
So starting out, the shortest song, Pupa, went way harder than I think I was expecting off of this album. Right off the bat. And it drops into Cocoon, the longest track on this, kind of brilliantly, and has that smooth transition, that seamless segue, as it were, into the next song. Really good. Then we get to Cocoon. I have to mention Cocoon. One, it was where like the bass, like that song, the bass, like I stood up and took notice. Also, there was a goddamn saxophone. Pointing that out again. And then Afterglow. The ending of Afterglow. I forget the first time I used this, but the ending of this track reminded me again of a musical Dutch angle that puts this like spooky tension on the entire ending. It was just kind of like as we I have to do it too. Whatever. Puts this like weird
My
sort of
all the way over there.
puts this weird tension on the end of the record that puts this like really cool intrigue to everything. And I think that personally is a really cool way to end an album. I don't know if he plans on doing more stuff solo, but that if he does, I think the ending of like, if you set this up with the first track on the next record, you have to like re-ease into that, because if you don't, I will be sad personally.
Brett, what would be some of the key tracks for you?
The Cocoon. I don't know if you guys heard this. There's a saxophone in that song.
Yeah.
But no, like the thing that I liked about that song, because there's a lot of that song. Like, believe me, that's a bunch of song. I'm going to talk about a little. I almost wanted to bring up Cocoon, talk about another song, and then come back to Cocoon and talk about the other 5 minutes. But like, there's a lot of really cool beats, and like when they do the rests, and then like they do little fills with like little guitar flourishes. Like that was super neat. Like they had to fill their funky ass time signature, and they had to do something there. So instead of doing like a they did a boodle-deedle-doo. And yes, there's a lot of boodle-deedle-doos. Boy howdy, there are a ton of boodle-deedle-doos. And they go for longer than you would think that one could boodle-deedle-do. And like there is some gymnastics of the guitar going on, and there's some great harmonizing and unison work done with multiple instruments. Like the technical work on this album is pretty great. There's some parts of it that did, like I said earlier, feel very Alan Holdsworthian. In
I
some of it,
that reference. I get that reference.
Yeah, like the things that sound like it's almost music, but somebody who's doing it is definitely doing that for a reason. And then the parts of it were Barkerville from Castlevania, is like,
I get that reference too.
But the reverb on the saxophone kind of made the saxophone, because it sounded like, I wonder if they found like some old empty church to play it, because it definitely sounded like, it was definitely a saxophone that was in a special kind of reverb that touched my heart. And it was well placed in the song too, like as I went back to that 10-minute song, I was like, I'm going to scroll to there. Oh, there's the saxophone, like right in the middle where you need it. Lunar Room, a whole room full of Lunar. In the middle of the song, around around 3 minutes, it like was using the sound chip out of a Super Nintendo, and we were playing Secret of Mana. It had that little like that going on. And then also it made me remember Secret of Mana's music and the way that the Super Nintendo could do drum beats and like synth strings. But one more song, Twisted Shadows. There was Quack-Wah, but I think it was on a keyboard. Like, you know, outside of Bootsy Collins, if you can like Quack-Wah, like, and duck around, like that's never bad.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, everybody be talking about gooses these days. The geese are hot, but you know, I'm down with some Quack.
That is the great Dream Theater keyboardist Jordan Rudess.
Yes.
Honk.
I think I'm done mentioning Dream Theater. I think I'm done.
I know you better than that. You're going to mention Dream Theater like a week from now.
Yes. Yeah, I think I want to definitely sign a shadow. Sign a shadow.
Sign a shadow.
Sign a shadow.
There's another prog metal album title right there.
Sign a shadow. I love it.
There you go.
Cat Stevens song.
Yeah. Shine a light. I don't know.
There's no lyrics, but there's a video.
You know,
of a silhouette just signing what the actual lyrics would be.
Yeah.
I love it.
I love it. Shine a shadow. That's deep, man.
I love it.
I wanted to shine a light on a couple of tracks that Brett just touched on, which is Lunar Room. On top of this, SNES sounds in the middle. I just liked how it began. Just like that beginning was just really kind of like odd and captivating, and then it kind of goes into a bunch of other places. And Twisted Shadows, specifically for the Quack-Wah, but mainly kind of how it the beginning of the track, just like this ominous beginning that sets things up for the track going forward. That like almost like a carnival show. Which is really cool, like the carnival music a little bit, and then it just goes a bunch of really cool places on top of all the other tracks. But let's bring it back around the horn, talk about some conclusive thoughts. Drew, what would be your conclusion on this album as a whole?
It's one of those things where this is not. I think anybody would take this not as Metal 101. This is not your intro course. This is not the easiest thing to get your head around to start.
Jethro Tull.
Grammy Award winning
heavy metal artist Jethro Tull. Sorry.
The heavy metal flute, as it were, as opposed to the heavy metal saxophone. But no, this is not what you would give someone who's like, hey, I'm just getting into the metal. Nor would I say it's even something for your seasoned thrash metal person. There's a very special subsection of people who both like intricate jazz and metal that this is for. And I think both sides will get something out of it. Yes, as the man from Detroit raises his hand. But that being said, I think that there's a lot here. I think that it's one of those things that people like us, the guys who sit around thinking too much about music sometimes, can sink their teeth into some stuff and be like, wow, okay. Like, I can see where it would be fun being in the studio and like thinking up of this crazy thing. But like I said, I would not suggest it to everybody, but I would suggest it to most music nerds, I think. I think a lot of those folks have a lot to get out of this.
Mm-hmm. Brett, how would you conclude on this album?
I don't know. It was that stuff. Like all the things we just described. If that sounds good to you, like, yeah, you're going to have a good time. If this sounds like a chore, like, it doesn't have to be for you for this to exist. It'll be fine without you. But I'm not going to say like everything on here is like my exact like strain of the junk, the jazz junk or the metal junk. Or even sometimes somebody might say that Brett might not like his metal and his jazz on the same plate.
This isn't your strain of jazz cigarette, is what you're saying?
No, it's not. This jazz cabbage is not my strain. But I still enjoyed a lot of it. There's so much going on here that is so different and from different styles of music, and it's all like blended together. And then every now and then, like you almost do a spit take when you hear a saxophone come in. Like it's not a bad time, but I'm not like, it didn't change my life forever. And I wouldn't hand this to my mom and be like, hey, get a load of this. But I'm not going to, but I'm happy that, I'm happy that old Deej was like, here, get a load of this. So it's not a bad time, but it's just probably not for everyone.
Like, Charles, I think our son is on drugs. He handed me this record.
He said it was jazz.
I had one gummy. Don't at me, Jesus.
But yes, this ain't your Charlie Parker. This is not your Django Reinhardt.
Charlie Parker had more drugs in him than a Rite Aid.
That's right. Jazz and drugs go together. But looking at this band, they do not look like the kind of people that have glasses of codeine sitting on their piano. So
no.
They're not felonious and flunking.
Yeah, no. This is a cool record. This is an interesting it goes a lot of places and is cool and complex and dense in a really dope way. The tracks flesh out really well. Like it has all these really cool moments that you expect from like a prog record. It has the 10-minute songs and the 8-minute songs, and each of them have their own like little different movements within the song, and it is fantastic and it is really fun to listen to. But yeah, it is not for everyone. Like this is advanced learning. This is AP
graduate level. Yes.
Yeah.
Like the King Crimson episode a while back, everybody.
Exactly. This is you're doing.
Yeah, Brett, you missed when I brought King Crimson.
Which one did you bring? Because I totally followed along the whole time, and I was here the whole time. I was on that episode. I had strong opinions. Remember?
Red. It was Red. The album Red.
All right. Yeah. You know what I have to say about that album, everyone. You listened to that episode.
Yes. Sure did.
Really good stuff. But yeah, this is that like unadulterated high strain stuff that'll get you going.
The shit that killed Elvis.
Yes.
As the kids say nowadays, it hits different.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. David, finally, how would you conclude on this album as a whole?
I have been working my way through the world of vaporwave and future funk just to kind of dabble in other places and in other universes. And damn it, I'm admittedly, I'm kind of ashamed to admit that I enjoyed this album as much as I did. Try as I might, I'm still a progressive rock nerd, and this album in 2019, it is just my true north. Like, it is exactly what I was looking for. It was exactly what I was looking for, as much as I hate to admit that. I love the almost schizophrenic sense of musical composition and complete lack of regard for typical songwriting convention. I just can't get enough of that for the most part. I love this stuff, and I can't help it. I just can't.
This tingles Deej's tangle.
It really does. As much as I try to get away from this, it just pulls me back in. And Richard Henshall, he stretched a little bit from Haken, who I like, but I really, really, really enjoyed this solo album of his a lot. And if you are daring enough to branch off, if you want something in your metal that's a little more wobbly and woobly, this might be something for you to check out. If you do have a knack for some jazz fusion and something a little more experimental with a bit more of a guitar punch to the jaw, a little more crunch, this might be something for you. And damn it, I'm sorry, everybody. I love this prog shit. I'm sorry. I can't get it out of my head. I love it. I'm sorry.
This prog shit is mine. Yes.
Progress.
Progress. This is progress.
I can't get it out of my head.
Oh, they're all right. They got some good talent.
Hmm.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sellouts.
It's a lot of promotions.
I said it.
So is Evolve. Evolve is basically the AA now. There's a AA affiliate.
After the show, somebody has to tell me what happened at NWA because I saw some people bitching, but that's besides the point. Let's go.
We'll talk. We'll talk. That brings us to the end of our thoughts on Richard Henshall.
Old Dickie H.
Dickie H. Dickie Henshall. Good album. Really cool. Now we get to the main event of the evening. We get to the moment we've all been waiting for. The haiku reviews. We get down to the nitty gritty. We get down to the good stuff. Let's get it poppin'. Drew,
In here.
What is your haiku?
Prog metal goodness. Utterly perfect mixing. Great use of his friends.
Mm-hmm. Brett, what is your haiku?
A little jazzy, a little bit rock and roll. Metamorphosis.
Mm-hmm. My haiku. Good and complex fun with great skills on full display. Sink your teeth right in. And last but not least, David, what is your haiku?
Haken's X-Man plays. Stretches himself out a bit. Quirky and complex.
Mm-hmm. Those are our thoughts on Richard Henshall's The Cocoon. You can, of course, find this on our Spotify playlist. Play Record Breakers, the home game. Do your due diligence and your due diligence. Following it along at home on that Spotify playlist will be next week's record. And it will be provided by our own Drew. Drew, what do you got for us next week?
Not to date this recording a little bit, I guess, but I had somebody visiting my fair home state, and we ended up going to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which reminded me that this band exists and how much I love them. Decided to do their third studio album, what's considered by one of their members their best album, released in November of 1977. We're going to be doing Forest Hill's own The Ramones with Rocket to Russia.
Mm-hmm. So look forward to that next week. That's going to be fun.
Might have that on vinyl.
Just whip that out.
It's gonna be one musically complex record to the next. It's just
right.
Exactly.
Smooth transition.
A real long listen.
Yes.
Smooth transition.
Segues
Yes.
are perfect on this.
Smooth.
On this podcast.
Smooth.
Yes. But that is that. That'll be next week, and this is this week. And you can, of course, find us all over the internet. David is at Call Me DJM. Drew is at XDruciferX. Brett is at HibbityBird, HIBBITYBIBBARD. I'm at PD Rave. The show's at 4 Record Breakers. That's the number 4 Record Breakers. RecordBreakersPodcast.com. RecordBreakersPodcast@gmail.com. Rebelli.net for this and other shows. Rebelli TV on YouTube. You can find us everywhere you find podcasts: Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud. As long as I remember to post it on time on SoundCloud. I forget about SoundCloud. Sorry. But you can like, subscribe, share, do all the things everywhere you find
Give
podcasts.
PD a positive review. He works really hard on this.
Yeah.
Give him an updo.
Yeah. Do all the things. Until next time. Hasta los huevos.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.